Good evening and welcome to the 7th episode of Python CodeBytes. Today we're going to be looking at something called input. Now we've looked at how to store information in variables, we've looked at functions and how we can split our code up into small sections that we can then call from other places in the code. And we've also looked at how we can pass information into a function and how we can return information from a function back to our main program. So today we're going to look at getting information from the user. This is a very important part of our program logic, as it's going to allow us to tell the code what we're going to do next based on what the user has asked to do. So all we're going to do today is we're going to very quickly create a add function. So okay, so there's our add function set up, and now we're just going to return the value of x plus y. Okay, so that's everything we looked at last week. We've looked at how a function works and how we can return information. Let's just save this quickly in our CodeBytes folder, and we'll save this as input.py. There we are. And I should be able to run that and it won't do anything, but it will just run because we've not called this function yet. And now we're going to let's define a function. Okay, so let's define another new function to return an input from the user, and we're going to say define get user input. Okay. And what we're going to do is we're just going to create a line that returns the user input as a string. Okay. And we're going to actually return something from a function called raw input. Now I'm using Python 2.7. I've struggled to get Python 3.3 installed on my laptop. I get a lot of errors when I do so I'm stuck using 2.7 for the time being. This is the first time that we've actually seen a difference between two different versions of Python. In Python 3, I could say, please enter your first number, okay? And when I run this, you'll see now if I say get user input and we run that function, and we'll save it in a string called a. Okay, and we'll run that. So please enter your first number, and I'll say 4. Okay, and that's actually worked when it probably shouldn't have. What we'll do instead is we'll change this line here to be and we're going to see here when I run this, we're actually going to get an error. Okay, and this error looks quite complicated. Basically, all you need to know is this is wrong in Python 2.7. Input works differently in Python 2.7 to how it does in 3.3. So what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to replace the function input with raw input. Okay, and that will actually work. So if we print the value of a here, what you can see now is I'm running this code here, so I'm saying a equals the raw input, which is a function, and it's printing out this text here, and then it's giving me a cursor, and it's allowing the user to type some information in, and when I hit enter, that information will get saved in the variable a, and then we can print it to the screen. So we can get input from a user, and then we can do something with it. So let's quickly change this to our get user input function. Okay, and we're going to change this to raw input as well. So if you're following my tutorials and you're writing in 2.7, you'll need to write exactly as the code appears here. If you're using Python 3, Python 3+, you'll have to use the input function as opposed to the raw input function, just because of the way that the two different types of Python uses that information. So let's say here we're going to store the first number in A, store the second number in B, and we're going to say B equals get user input as well, and we're going to say add A and B together, storing in C. Okay, and we're going to say C equals add A and B, and we're going to pass. So we're passing our value of A, which is input from the user, into the add function, and we're passing B into the add function, and then we're just going to say print the answer. Okay, and we'll just say print C. So we're going to print out the value that we get returned from our add function when we pass in the input from our user. So we're going to get two numbers from the user, and we're going to add them together, and then we're going to print the answer. So first number is going to be a 5, and second number is going to be a 7, and that's printed 57. Why has that happened? Well, raw input returns a type of a string. So here, when I'm getting the input from the user in this get user input function, we're actually returning the value of a string, and we're passing two strings into A and B. And if you remember from our session on types, if I add two strings together, so X would be the string value 5, Y would be the string value 7, it just appends them onto each other. It just adds literally one next to the other. So what we need to do here is we're going to change this so that we're not returning a string, we're going to return an integer. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to cast our string here to an integer. Okay? Just as simple as that. So when we get this input, we'll get the input as a string, and then that string is being cast to a type of integer. So when I run this now, please enter your first number, 5, second number, 7, and there you go. We've got two ints being added together. 5 plus 7 equals 12. Store the value in C, and then we're printing that value out. So quite a lot of information being thrown at you, but the two main things that you need to take away from this is we have this raw input function, which is a way of getting input from the user, and it only works in 2.7. In 3 we would have to just use input like that. We wouldn't have the raw part. Okay? And the second thing that you need to remember is that raw input will always return a type of string. So if we want to use it as an integer, we have to cast it to a type of integer. And you might want to cast it to other things as well. So there's our first program we've looked at with any user input, and we'll build on this knowledge in future weeks to start building up some actual program code. And what I think we might do is we might build a calculator in the coming weeks. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed it. A bit of a longer tutorial today, but quite a lot to cover. If you've any questions, this is quite confusing stuff, so please don't be afraid to ask me in the comments, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.